You're watching another Nerd Stalker interview. Okay, we're live. Welcome to another Nerd Stalker interview. Good morning. This is Greg Boria, aka Social Greg on Twitter for the Nerd Stalker Media Network. Today we speak with Josh Lifton, the co-founder of CrowdSupply, a crowdfunding platform which it's a little bit different than CrowdStarter, and we'll let Josh talk about that in a little bit. So I was introduced to CrowdSupply by a close friend, and I asked her why CrowdSupply for her client. And she said, well, talk to Josh. He'll tell you. So that's why we're here. We interviewed Navina. That's the person that I was talking about, the client. And they had an open source laptop that was funded by CrowdSupply, by the way. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about Josh. He has a doctorate from MIT, so he's pretty smart. And did wearable computers for the Cirque du Soleil, which I kind of caught. I wasn't quite sure exactly what was. Everyone to know that, but I did catch that. So anyway, good morning, Josh. Thanks for joining us here on Let's Talk Live from Oregon, right?
Yep, I'm in Portland, Oregon. Thanks for having me, Greg. Appreciate
No
it.
problem, no problem. Thanks for joining us here. So anything you want to tell the Nerd Soccer audience about yourself that I left out?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a programmer and hardware hacker, but these days I mostly do business development and kind of outreach and helping other people do those same things through crowdfunding. So if I spend most of my day talking to people with their ideas, some of them very out there, some of them really grounded, and how they can bring that to market and the different steps they can get for funding and how CrowdSupply can help them.
No, that's cool. So,
Yeah.
let's get into this. So to me, when I look at crowd supply, you have kind of a ground roots approach towards crowdfunding. Your projects are reported to have an average of 43,000. That's, that I saw on the internet.
Yep.
Can you describe some of the uniqueness you have as a crowdfunding platform?
Yeah. So I think from the outside, we very much look like some of the other crowdfunding platforms out there, and that's intentional. But really, we're kind of a product development as a platform. So crowdfunding is a piece of that, and we flesh that out with all these other things that you need to develop a physical product that gets manufactured. So, marketing and fulfillment and sales after your campaign. You know, connections to suppliers, all of those things we have a hand in. We don't actually manufacture anything ourselves. We stay out of that. But otherwise, it's kind of the full support that you need to really go from idea to product.
Now, did you find when you guys were creating this kind of model for crowdfunding that when you looked at the existing ones that were out there that there were it seemed like we always hear about the ones that are successful or break records
Yep.
and all that stuff, but
Yep.
there are a big percentage just like getting
Yeah.
VC funded that just
Yep.
fail, right? And, I
Yep.
mean,
Absolutely.
can I go through some of the steps you guys go through because I
Sure.
really interesting is some of the pre-vetting that you guys do for
Yeah.
products, right?
Yeah. So we all have an engineering background and a product development background. So we approach it in a very hands-on way, right? We look at every single project that comes in. There's no automated way, for example, to even launch a project. It's all very high touch for us, and that pays off in the end in spades. I think we have a perfect delivery rate. So for every project that's been funded has either delivered or is on track for delivering. And the way we do that is in a large part is through that vetting process. And this is something, we call it vetting, but it's also just feedback, right? It's two sides of the same coin, right? This is something that's really valuable for creators because oftentimes they've just been talking to people that like them, right? And I don't like that many people, I guess. But really, more to the point, we don't make money until they make money. And so we're brutally honest about what we think how successful this project will be. And we'll tell them, listen, this isn't going to work for these reasons. And most of the time, they're not even technical reasons, right? Most of the time, um, it's just a market. You're not going to find a market for this, or this is too ambitious, or not ambitious enough, or whatever the reason is. Um, and so, while we never just say outright no, we do say no, and here's why, and please, work on these 5 things or however many, and come back to us. So there's a lot of that goes on.
So you do a lot of, I guess, a lot back and forth before they even appear on the site to get funded,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. Usually, I mean, in some cases, uh, over a year in some cases. I think the quickest turnaround we ever had, I think, was just maybe 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah, and they were ready to go, and they stumbled upon us, or we stumbled upon them, and then they were far enough along, and everything was in place that we just launched it. So, but sometimes it does take months to get ready.
Another unique feature I saw when looking at your site, you actually create a e-commerce backbone for these
Yep,
products that you're actually featuring, right?
yep, yep, and that's really the genesis of crowd supply, right? My co-founders and I have product development and engineering and crucially e-commerce and fulfillment experience. And when Kickstarter came out in September 20th, 2012, they had a blog post, the title of which was "Kickstarter is not a store," right? And that was when we decided, uh, this is something that we can do. They're backing away from this. They don't want to be this. This isn't in their roots. This is exactly where we are, and let's do it. So we are a store. We're open for business. And part of that is the whole e-commerce platform, and that e-commerce platform. It's not just being able to take credit cards, right? It's also about fulfillment and warehousing and auditing and tracking all of the state of your orders. And so it's a really robust system that's been in development for actually several years. Supply existed that we've adopted for crowd supply.
Now,
Yeah,
now, now, yeah, I think you guys are quite clear. These are products that you guys fund. They're not
correct.
art movies or something like that. These are
That's right.
actually real physical products that people could actually buy, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's as long as it's manufactured and you have to ship it to somebody, we're interested, right? So it could be a movie if you're making lots of DVDs, but more typically it's something that sits on a shelf somewhere or is used every day. Like, so we've done apparel, we've done food, we've done bicycles, computers, art, books, all sorts of things. But all the common thread is the manufacturability of it. Um, Absolutely.
Now, yeah, let's go. Let's shift to manufacturability because I think another thing that I caught that was interesting when I was researching you guys and looking in your site that you actually even help people on the manufacturing side find suppliers, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think more important than that even is we've each done our own products before this, and now with Crowd Supply, we've launched over 70 products at this point, and so we're bringing that experience to each product that comes through. And so not only is it finding your suppliers and vendors, but it's asking the question, is this even the right manufacturing plan, right? So people come to us, for example, there was one example where this guy came to us. He said, "I need tens or a couple tens of thousands of dollars to get molds done for this thing." And when we looked at it, he'd been making them, he'd been laser cutting them on
Mm.
wood, and we're like, "Well, just keep doing that until you really need it," right? And so that cut out a huge logistical complexity from his operation, um, and I think that was the right thing to do. And later on he can go to injection molding if he really needs to. But so finding the right suppliers, but also what's the right plan even.
No, so the right methodology towards manufacturing. Yeah, I
Yep.
agree with you. I think there's a lot of people who might have great ideas, might have a
Hmm.
great marketing plan, but
Yep.
the fulfillment plan just isn't there. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's one of the frustrations when I interview people a lot on Kickstarter. We run a series called Kickstarter Unbox where we kind of
Hmm.
unbox like learnings from entrepreneurs
Hmm.
and some of the entrepreneurs tell me, yeah, I wish I had put more planning into manufacturing. My
Right.
timeline 3 months out of where I planned it.
Right. Right.
And the problem is, I think from a I think when I look at a project and I want to crowdfund it on Kickstarter, I generally there's some kind of thing that hits me in my mind, my heart about the
Hmm.
products. Like it, but as time goes on and they keep on missing deadlines, I'll start to wane on the product. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll start to not trust
Well,
things. I mean, yeah,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
sometimes by the time it even gets to you, there was one case, I think it was a keyboard for your iPad. They did end up shipping. It was like 2 years late, but they did ship it. And by the time they shipped it, it was totally obsolete, right? And so you can't wait 2 years to ship a consumer electronics product. It's it's already been buried by then. So we're seeing stories pretty much every week now, of some doom and gloom on crowdfunding because of missed deadlines or uh, mismanagement or malfeasance or what have you. And that's something that we're really really conservative about, and we don't want that to happen. And fingers crossed it hasn't happened yet. So for us.
Now, some of the issues that I've discovered interviewing these guys also is in the amount of communications they get from people who are interested in their product, and
Mhm.
it's a difficulty. But some of the communications is spammy, actually.
Oh yeah.
And in fact, almost dishonest, right? To the fact
Yeah.
that they want to know enough about their specs to probably, go to some third world country and bring it to market before these guys do it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
do you guys have any, thoughts or ways of?
Well, there's a silver lining to that, right? And basically, what that's a sign of is exposure, right? That's enough. It's getting enough exposure for your product and idea that people are starting to rip it off or wanting to, um,
Mhm.
or they're trying to get a piece of it somehow. Um, and the silver lining of that is that sometimes you get, and actually pretty often you get in touch with people you wouldn't have otherwise known, and they become business partners or distributors or suppliers or resellers. And that for I think that starts to get into the real value of a crowdfunding campaign. The real value isn't so much the capital that you get, although that's critical, right? But even if it's 10 times more than you were hoping, I think the real value is actually in the exposure and the market validation. And hey, this is an idea that I can build a company on now, right? Um,
Right.
yeah.
Right. No, no, I agree with you on that point. I think there is a kind of positive edge to that. I agree.
Mhm.
I think the one thing that you guys have that you have almost a consulting nature on this crowdfunding side.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it sounds like if they have questions about, hey, this guy's a supplier. Yeah, have you heard of this guy?
Right.
It seems like they could ask questions of you guys like that, and you
Yep.
guys.
Yep. And not don't get me wrong, my inbox is full of spam from exactly the type of people you're talking about. So it is a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are I know Novino is probably one of the most popular
Hmm.
companies that I've seen, from my standpoint. But
Hmm.
are there other notable companies that you guys have crowdfunded recently, or
Yeah. I mean, the circus stickers was huge, and that's actually been one of our best-selling products after the campaign.
Wow.
Uh, the campaign did fairly well, uh, but the sales afterward have really taken off, and we've been working with them to build up their e-commerce site. Um, there are examples of there was a campaign in the spring that easily met its goal and did really well, and then the typical die off in interest over several months happened, but then it just went viral again, right? And so this was, I think it was like 3 or 4 months after the campaign had ended. There was just a massive spike, and it actually doubled the amount that they raised because we were still open for pre-orders, and you can, and that's kind of a foundational thing, right? Once you launch the campaign, somebody can always put money down, right, and or be involved until you decide that you don't want to do this product anymore. So that was the USB condom that I was thinking of there. The Portland Press we're selling their second run of that now. We've done Wild Outdoor Apparel has done three jackets with us, and they keep tweaking and iterating. And that was an interesting one because when I first met Dan, the creator there, he came in with three huge duffel bags full of clothing that he designed, and it was a complete line. And I mean, he was ready to go. He was ready to go into a big retailer and try to sell the entire line. But instead, he decided to go with us and see what happened on each one individually, and then change his story as it went. And he did radically change his story. He went from a manufactured in China story to a within 50 miles sort of Portland, sourcing as much as he could there. Obviously not all the materials, but as much as he could, and then all the labor was local as well. So
Wow.
that was a big story from feedback from his customers.
Wow, that's a great story. No, I mean, yeah, to try to get it. and that's what I kind of see even with this whole kind of crowdfunding mentality, or
Hmm.
is is the ability to actually control and decide where you want to manufacture,
Yeah.
how you want to do it, and keep control of
Yeah.
your company in a certain
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's the closest you're going to get to metal in terms of in product development, right? I mean, there's really not much between you and every step along the way. And even if there is, you're making that decision. Okay, I'm going to outsource this to somebody, and usually it's somebody um, I've already spoken to, and they're really familiar with the project.
Well,
Um,
yeah, let's shift to a little bit about your fee structure a little bit.
mhm,
What is the fee structure for crowd supply, at least in the funding element, and then maybe you could talk
mhm.
about the commerce side a little bit.
Yeah, so we have essentially five revenue streams. All of these, like as I mentioned earlier, we don't make money until you do. So we're always taking like a percentage of what's made, essentially.
Mhm.
The most obvious is the crowdfunding. We take 5% of that, of whatever's crowdfunded, and then when a campaign ends, it goes into what we call pre-order mode, where you basically have it's very similar to the crowdfunding stage, except there's no deadline. You just get in line, right? You know it's going to happen, so you put your money down, you get in line, and we take 10% of that. And then once the product is made, uh, we'll most likely have put in our own order during the pre-order or even during the campaign because we want it in stock when it's finally ready. And so that's a typical kind of retail wholesale arrangement that we come to with each creator. So those are three ways we make money, and then we did just start offering kind of a professional services level
Oh,
that's been really popular, and so that's where for everyone we provide some level of professional services, but when you're paying for it, we take a higher cut of what's funded, and it's really like having extra people on your team, and we're there to manage the project essentially,
oh,
and then finally there's the fulfillment piece, which is a flat fee per package and plus the freight costs and
wow.
that we're not trying to make money off that. That's just a break even sort of thing.
I see. Yeah, but I think what your guys are trying to do is just offer full service to
Yeah.
anyone who comes into and works with you guys. So that's a
Yep.
good that's a really good thing.
Yep.
So anyway, we'll close off the interview, and I thank you for your time. I know you're
Yeah.
very busy. So how can people get a hold of you and maybe get started with crowd supply?
Yeah. So you can get a hold of us through our website if you go to crowdsupply.com, and then there's a create button, and that there's a web form right there that goes directly to our email. You can also find us on Twitter, crowd or Facebook. But it's pretty quick from a web form to email to a phone call with
Oh,
us.
thank you so much. Well,
Yeah.
anyway, that was Josh Lifton, co-founder of Crowd Supply, a funding alternative for product developers, providing mentorship, as you heard, store, and up-to-date delivery communications as well. So this is Greg Gloria, aka Social Greg on Twitter for the Nerd Stalker Media Network. We believe in tech, startups, design, and you. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and be careful out there. Hey, thanks again, Josh. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Greg. Take care.